My name is Estela López-Hermoso. I will repeat this again later because people keep on joining. And together with my colleague Chiara Bearzotti, we are both facilitating this workshop together as EU project managers for European Bioplastics. So people are getting in, I see.
If you've just joined, if you could just check that your microphone is on mute and that your camera is switched off, if you're one of the participants that is facilitating our task. And we will have some time for Q&A during the questions session. So I'm just trying to mute you. If you're not muting yourself, I'm trying to do it myself. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Chiara.
Yeah, that's
great. I think just we leave one more minute and then I will start, okay? We have our speakers already here. Buckle up. Thank you very much, all of you, for agreeing to participate in this workshop. And please, if you just enter, mute yourself, switch off the camera. We will speak about housekeeping rules now in a second. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, the audio sound is perfect.
Okay, then I think we'll start slowly and then people might get still flocking into our workshop today, our webinar. So welcome everyone. Again, I introduce myself. My name is Estela López-Hermoso, and I'm EU Project Manager at European Bioplastics together with my colleague Chiara Bearzotti, who will speak later on. She will do the closing and explain to you many different opportunities on how to work together on this topic. So today we are talking about circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings and how to apply the sustainable and safe by design framework. This is a workshop that we're doing together for projects, the Bio4Code, ITENE, BIO-SUSHY, and Tornado. And the different speakers will speak about the projects, which are in different levels of maturity, actually. So we'll learn more about them. So with that, we are going to start, and the workshop will last until 1 p.m. Central European Time. So circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings. This is a new series of workshops, and this is the first one of the series. And what we are aiming at is for exchanging knowledge between the experts in the topic of circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings. Here today we have 4 of them for these 4 projects, and this series will be facilitated by us, by Chiara and myself, by European Bioplastics, within the framework of Bio4Code, in which we are a partner. The project that just recently started in summer, and it's coordinated by Funditech. So as you can see, this series has just started. This is the first of the kind in November 2025, and we will have recurrently workshops every 4 months and until May 2029, when the project is ending. So we will communicate the date for the following workshop in due time when we share the materials or afterwards. So disclaimer, this project is supported by the Circular Biobased Europe Joint Undertaking and its members under Grant Agreement number 101215161, and it's funded by the European Union. Views and opinions expressed here are, however, those of the authors or the speakers only, and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union or the CBEJU. Neither the European Union nor the CBEJU can be held responsible for them. Having said that, housekeeping rules. I think you know the drill. You have been to many webinars in Teams, so please as we have already said, mute your microphone if you have not done so, switch off your camera, and there will be ample time for questions. Please use the chat for any comment or questions. We will be reading them, and we will have ample time, as I said, because we'll have 2 Q&As. I will go through the agenda quickly in a second, but we will have time to put questions to the speakers. This is going to be recorded. It's being recorded, in fact, and the recording will be made available in due time, as well as proceedings of the workshop. And why are we organizing this workshop? So we have 3 main aims. One is to exchange practical insights and experiences on implementing the safe and sustainable by design principles of the framework that if you're not familiar with it, you will be after today. And in the design and development of circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings, because we are focusing on coatings while showcasing the EU project outputs from these EU-funded projects. We also want to facilitate the dialogue across the safe and sustainable by design innovation landscape, and we want to gather interest in this cluster of projects and initiatives working on the topic of circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings. This cluster will be facilitated by European Bioplastics. Yes, we are creating a cluster. So this is the agenda. I am right now, as you can see, welcoming you and introducing the cluster. After me would open the presentations, Emma Strömberg from the Swedish Environmental Research Institute, who will talk about the implementation of the safe and sustainable by design concept for industrial impact. This will be a quite nice opening and first presentation to then delve more in detail on specific aspects. Hello. So we have some microphone here that is making a lot of noise. Can we please mute yourselves when you enter into the chat? I still hear something a bit, thank you, that's nice. So please, again, we have already explained about the housekeeping rules, but when you come to the webinar, please mute yourselves and switch off your camera. That will facilitate a lot the development of the workshop. So I was just saying, after Emma provides us with this picture on the implementation of the safe and sustainable by design concept for industrial impact, Pau Camillieri Lledo from ITENE and the BIO-SUSHY project will speak about safe and sustainable by design organic and hybrid coatings. And then we'll have a Q&A. And that's why it's where you can keep putting your questions in the chat, and then we will have this first Q&A on this first part. And then after the Q&A, which would last 20 minutes, we will go with Dimitris on the safe and sustainable by design and the digital product passport. Dimitris from the Center for Research and Technology in Hellas, from the Bio4Code project, in which we are also partners. Then Rosella Telareti-Leggeri from the Swedish Environmental Research Institute and the Tornado project will speak about fluorine-free coatings for textile, kitchenware, and packaging applications. And then we'll have a joint Q&A for another 20 minutes to discuss these 2 presentations, and of course, any other question or comment that you would have during the workshop. And finally, my colleague Chiara Bearzotti will speak about the cluster and the call for interest on how to join this cluster and the memorandum of understanding. So, and then we'll come to the end of the meeting. Please, if you're entering into the chat, you mute yourself, switch off the camera, and here we go. So the cluster, I'm just going to speak very briefly about the cluster. This is something that, as I hinted before, we have European Bioplastic has established and will be facilitating this cluster on circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings. This is our responsibility and our task on the Bio4Code project. And why is it a technical clustering and with whom? So here, what we mean by technical clustering, it's to build synergies with sister projects, so projects that have been either funded by the same call or similar calls, and liaising with existing projects, right, that are working on coatings or that have worked on coatings to create these regular formats for exchanging progress and bringing forth our consolidated knowledge. So for that, we're setting up joint activities with these other projects, and this is one of them. This is actually the first of them. And the final activity will be the organization of a joint policy briefing to share results with policymakers in an event with policy recommendations, etc., which will come then towards 2029. With whom are we clustering? So here we have sister projects Bio4Code and Blue Code, which are sister projects funded by the same call by the CBEJU, but there are many more projects working on the same topics on coding, so that have worked, such as ITENE, Tornado, and BIO-SUSHY, and we have today Rosela, Pau, and Emma to speak about these projects and their goals or their outcomes. So perhaps if you are here and you're interested and you're working on this topic and you're working in a project working on codings, perhaps your project or initiative too. My colleague Chiara will speak more about this later on after the presentations. So the purpose of the cluster, the ultimate goal is to facilitate this technical exchange amongst the expert researchers, ensuring that our voices are strong and together when bringing project results and policy recommendations in the form of policy briefings to policymakers. This is our ultimate goal. And these are the specific activities that we have envisaged for the next 4 years. Again, European Bioplastics, my colleague Chiara and I, as facilitators, we will be, with the participation of all the cluster members and non-members, we will facilitate these following activities: joint technical discussions online or in person, or very specific topics on the topic of circular, sustainable, and bio-based coatings. We will also organize joint webinars, at least 10 until May 2021. This is one of them, with experts from Bio4Code and from the cluster projects. We will also organize 2 technical workshops with longer format, one in person and one online. Joint network events with other EU-funded projects to exchange technical knowledge. And we will also organize periodic joint meetings between the cluster projects to exchange information, advice, updates, of course, at least once a year, to make sure that we are working together. Optional activities, for example, might be joint scientific publications, or at the invitation of cluster projects representatives to other annual meetings to share updates, etc., to be, of course, discussed during these periodic joint meetings as opportunities arise. More activities as well with European Bioplastics as facilitator, Chiara and I, with the participation of only cluster members. This, based on the knowledge shared in these previous activities that I just mentioned, will be this joint policy briefing towards the end, more in 2029, a joint policy briefing under the coordination of the facilitator, of us, providing this synthesis of the outcomes and recommendations stemming from individual projects and initiatives. And a joint contributions to policy initiatives, such as replies to consultations, commission consultations, or white papers, etc. So with this, I've taken enough time to present why are we here, why are we doing this, the breadth of knowledge that we will put together to build exchange and make sure that these synergies are well established. And with this, I will pass the floor to Emma to have the first presentation to provide us with the implementation of the Safe and Sustainable by Design framework and the industrial impact. Thank you, Emma, for being here, and the floor and the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Great, you got to see my calendar.
Oh, good. Now we're in PowerPoint.
Yes, perfect,
exactly.
perfect. Okay.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to present some of the results and some of the outputs from the IRIS project. So I'm just going to start a timer. Perfect. So the IRIS project is in ongoing transition from a European project, Horizon Europe project, into being a permanent IRIS International SSbD community, and I will tell you more about it in a minute. My name is Emma Strömberg. I work at IVL, Swedish Environmental Research Institute, and have been coordinating the IRIS project. So just to set the scene, what we're talking about today, safe and sustainable by design concept, and I saw that several of you who are here at this webinar actually work with SSbD or even have contributed to the framework. So I still wanted to make sure that all of us are on the same page and that we're talking about the same things. So SSbD concept was first introduced in Chemical Strategy for Sustainability. And here is a working description from CSS. Safe, sustainable by design can be defined as a pre-market approach to chemicals that focuses on providing a function or service while avoiding volumes and chemical properties that may be harmful to human health or the environment. And the important part is also that overall sustainability should be ensured by minimizing the environmental footprint of chemicals, in particular on climate change, resource use, ecosystem, and biodiversity from a life cycle perspective. And after this concept has been introduced, a framework, an EU SSbD framework was set in 2022, which I will go into a little bit further. But right now, this framework is under revision and a new draft has been shared, and the stakeholders have had an opportunity to come back with feedback, and I wanted to also bring this statement from the revised, the suggestion for the revised framework here. By integrating safety and sustainability from the earliest stages of innovation, the SSbD framework can support a more resilient, competitive, and innovation-based future-proof industrial ecosystems. And I would like to emphasize that SSbD is focusing on innovation. We're talking about by design and what we are doing already from the beginning, considering the whole system. So the framework that was set in 2022 was divided into 5 different steps. 4 of the steps were part of recommendation from the Commission, and the 5th step was a voluntary step, I would say. But now in the revised version, the framework is divided into 3 parts: safety, environmental sustainability, and socioeconomic sustainability. And I would say that one of the most important things in the revised version is also that we're focusing on scoping. So the question, why are we doing this innovation? Why do we need the innovation? Also the question, what are we innovating? What are the properties that we're looking for? What are the raw materials that we're using? What is the innovation step altogether? Then also where this innovation is taking place, if we have, for example, local resources that we can use, or what kind of energy mix is used during the process, and how do we assure that the safety of the workers, the safety of the process itself, so that we don't have any release to the environment or any effect on human health. And also who is doing this? Who is responsible for making sure that the innovation is safe and sustainable, and who will document, how they will document, who will document, and who will be able to receive information from the documentation as well. So this is quite a big step towards putting the whole innovation process into a holistic perspective. And the assessment is not a linear one. It is iterative assessment, so that there is a possibility to, throughout the innovation process, to go back and redesign, rethink, in case you find something that is not really safe or sustainable during the process itself. And this is something that is being done in different projects, both projects that I collaborate with, projects that I'm part of, where we're looking at, for example, different coatings, just to put it into perspective of the webinar, for different applications, and after assuring the functionality and assuring that the process has been set, we also look at the assessment of sustainability assessment. We're looking with, for example, creating LCAs just to assure that we assess the whole life cycle of that product. And in case we realize that something is not sustainable, we go back to the drawing board and start over or rethink. The IRIS project focused on supporting implementation of SSbD within the community with different stakeholders. We have been working on creating a common understanding, trying to find a common language for implementation of SSbD, because many different companies, for example, the industrial sector has been working on safety regulation or sustainability approach, but we needed to find the commonalities and to contribute to the transition to the SSbD thinking. We have also been working hard on transfer of knowledge. As I mentioned, many have been working within certain areas for quite some time, and all of the knowledge accumulated within that area needed to be transferred into the whole community. We have worked really closely with different researchers, universities, different research projects. We have worked very closely with the Commission and, of course, industry to gain knowledge and best practice from what is already being done. We have created roadmaps. I will go a little bit into that, where we have looked both on the overarching roadmaps to assure that everybody in the community is included, but also looking into specific sectors that we have been collaborating with to assure that they have their own roadmaps for that specific value chain. And of course, all of the outputs that we have gained throughout the project, we wanted to contribute to the improvement of the framework. So been in close collaboration with JRC and given all of the feedback that we could into the framework for the development. And one of the most important goals of the project was building an SSbD community. I will tell you more about the community that exists today. So some of the key outcomes that we saw from the analysis mapping of what the value chains have already been involved in, we could see that there were many valuable insights about SSbD's role in the different value chains and how to implement SSbD within the value chain and what needs to be addressed, what was lacking. We presented several case studies where we, first of all, focused, I would say, more on challenges and how to assure that the assessment can be conducted, but we also looked at the solutions and different alternatives, and we tried to learn from each other to assure that the solutions can be easily implemented. We gained quite a good understanding of what kind of skills and knowledge that already exist, but also what is needed in the future. And we looked at what kind of knowledge is lacking within industry to fully embrace SSbD. So just to mention some of the gaps that need to be addressed, there's still a lack of harmonized and easy to apply tools and protocols, and this is a part of many different European projects today, both development of tools, integration of different tools, but also to assure that we are assessing the same thing. So to harmonize the whole field is still really necessary. And we have heard this many, many times that we need more data. We need open databases where we have rich data sets and updated data sets as well. There is, of course, very high uncertainty of the safety impacts at the early stage of the development, and this needs to be addressed. Some assumptions must be done at the early stage, and also to assure that at a later stage that we have a possibility, as I mentioned, to go back and to redesign in case needed. There is still a limited number of internal experts within the different value chains. And we also realized that some of the products that we were looking at are very complex. They consist of multiple materials and chemicals. And there is, of course, a need to have a system boundaries on what we are assessing for that specific product, or if we need to look at the complexity on a different level. And the full assessment can only be done at late stages of the innovation, which means that it could become a very expensive exercise if we need to go back all the way back and start excluding certain chemicals, for example. So we created this supportive roadmap. I will not go into detail on the roadmap, but we looked at what kind of knowledge information sharing needs there is, what kind of research needs we have, and also at what kind of skills and competences that are needed in the future. And I just want to go more deeply into the different research needs that we identified together with our value chains. And I want to just mention that we have worked together with 7 different value chains that have contributed in different ways and on different levels, that had different challenges, but also a lot of commonalities. So what we looked at, these are some of the common comments from the value chains on the different research needs for the future. First of all, how to implement SSbD in the innovation process. There's still ongoing discussion on how this can be done in the most effective way. There is a need for further development of LCA methods, standardization in a different way. Of course, the Commission is proposing using product environmental footprint as a standardized assessment, but there is still need for fine-tuning here. There is a need for updated new data sets and databases. We could see that many of the data sets are outdated, sometimes even from the 90s. And this is something that needs to be continuously updated, of course, to be able to use it in the research today. And there is a need to have different complementary methods for risk assessment, sustainability assessment. A lot of times we have been discussing integrating risk assessment, sustainability assessment, but there is also possibility for complementary methods and how to use them. traceability, of course, throughout the whole value chain that has been discussed in every single value chain, I would say. And traceability has been addressed within different initiatives for a very long time, but we still have a long way to go, I would say. And then, of course, we need to talk more about implementation of circularity along the value chains, not only for the final product and what to do at end of life, but also how circularity can be integrated throughout the whole value chain and throughout all of the different steps. There is a strong need and desire to transition from conventional materials to bio-based alternatives, which we can see in all of the different sectors that we have worked together with. And of course, there's more research needed on alternatives to the critical raw materials, especially within the electronics sector and energy sector. Also, development of efficient recycling methods and technology. There has been a bit of a pause that has been seen through by industry in the development of the different recycling methods, but this is something that has a very high requirement from industrial sector at the moment, and also to look at the development of services and non-material alternatives, which is, I think that this is a drive throughout the whole society. Okay. We also looked at skills and knowledge, as I mentioned, and we could see that within industrial sector, we have very strong skills on safety and, of course, following the regulations. And there is a different focus, of course, per value chain, but safety has been in focus for a very long time and is continuing, of course, to be one of the most important parts of it. That said, skills on sustainability are less mature since this hasn't been regulated. It has been mostly market driven, but more and more companies are striving towards more sustainable products on the market. We also could see that SSbD, implementation of SSbD requires a general understanding of chemistry and material science, but also system thinking. And this is something that we have been discussing on how to integrate already on the level of university education, so that these kind of skills and knowledge can be transferred already early on. And of course, we do need to increase knowledge and skills along the value chains so that already from the beginning, the suppliers throughout the whole value chain understand what kind of data that needs to be collected and sent further down the value chain so that this can be SSbD can be assessed for the whole product. And again, new tools. There is a call from industry for a common tool, simplified tools adjusted to maybe specific sectors. So looking at the different solutions, we could really see that there is a strong need for cooperation between industry, policy, science, to understand the challenges, to understand the possible interaction and possible collaboration, and how to transfer the knowledge in between the industry, policy and research, but also transfer the knowledge and best practice from larger organizations and companies to SMEs, because SMEs lack certain resources. Maybe they don't have economic situation that could benefit SSbD assessment, and therefore there is a possibility to transfer already existing knowledge from larger organizations to SMEs. And something that we realized was that there is a need for cross-exchange of knowledge between the different value chains. We could see several value chains have a lot of similarities where one value chain could see it as a challenge and another one has already resolved that and can see can help with different solutions for that. We do need training on methodologies, and we need to develop different skills to assess SSbD. And I also already mentioned that we need to look at the different educational programs at universities to have this at an early stage. We also need to educate the general public. We need to have a demand, a pull from the general public that this is needed. We need to engage more consultancies in driving this forward and also to assist on the assessment, SSbD assessment for different chemicals, materials and products. We also need to have an open discussion on trade-offs, and this is a very large topic, so I'm not going to go into this. But we have to assure that we have measures against greenwash so that this does not become the next greenwash. I'm running out of time, so I will just mention that we now have the IRIS International SSbD community that has been already launched. We're about 500 members within the community, and we are focusing on exchange of knowledge, supporting contact with different experts, supporting implementation of SSbD within different business models. We're looking at possibilities to guide when needed to different tools and how to use these tools. And also, of course, we are trying to keep up with the vast majority, vast amount of different findings that are coming out now where different projects are implementing SSbD, all of the publications that are coming out. And we are looking into recommendations of coming in contact with different experts within the area, and of course connecting industry, academia, policy to exchange different insights and experiences and so on. We're also conducting several events. We just had a conference last week in Zurich, SSbD 25, and this will be a yearly conference for further down the road as well. Here are the founding members of the IRIS International SSbD community, and please join us and become a member and contribute with your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you very much for this presentation. I think this is the perfect, and that's how we intended to have this very deep dive, but at the same time understanding of the framework and the challenges that its application and for industrial impact has. If you have any questions for Emma, you can type them already in the chat, and we will address them in the Q&A after Pau's presentation, which is coming now. Pau Camillieri Lledo from ITENE, from the BIO-SUSHY project, will present safe and sustainable by design, organic and hybrid coatings, the work that they are doing in the BIO-SUSHY project. Pau? Perfect. I see the presentation already in full screen, so the floor is yours. And then please type your questions for both Emma and Pau, and we will address them in the Q&A.
Thank you. First, thanks for inviting BIO-SUSHY to this webinar. BIO-SUSHY is a project where there are 14 partners from different countries, and we all collaborate together to to achieve the main objectives of BIO-SUSHY. The impacts that we achieve in BIO-SUSHY are the following. We expect the 25% reduction of environmental impact. We expect to contribute to the SSbD criteria and guiding principles, reduction of PFAS, and also provide computational tools to support the SSbD concept. We also, we will collaborate in the integration to standardization process, also enhance social acceptance of our outcomes. Also, we will provide business opportunities to SMEs and boosting the research and development and the innovation. But now let's get down to business. BIO-SUSHY is looking for replacing the PFAS. As you probably know, the PFAS are substances that provide excellent water and oil repellency properties. But why is that a problem? The PFAS are known as forever chemicals due to their resistance, widespread, and linked to environmental and health problems like cancer and decreased fertility. And how this could happen, because the exposure could happen through eating, drinking, or using consumer products containing PFAS. So BIO-SUSHY, the objective of BIO-SUSHY is to develop 3 novel coatings based on 2 technologies: thermoplastic powder formulation and hybrid coatings based on the combination of glass-like salt gel and organic, partially bio-based chemistry to replace the PFAS with the same level of water and oil repellency. To do that, the methodology of BIO-SUSHY is based on 3 pillars: the safe and sustainable by design, the modeling, and the research and innovation coating development. For the research and in the case of research and innovating coatings, 3 innovative coatings materials with water repellency and water and oil repellency are developed and validated within 3 case studies that are textile, food packaging, and glass packaging. To carry out the development, the researcher team worked collaboratively with the SSbD team that in BIO-SUSHY project is ITENE in collaboration with Materia Nova, Good K Plus, and University of Leeds. And this close collaboration helps to mitigate the adverse effects of the compounds that they could use in the formulations. So, Emma has done a great introduction of the SSbD framework, so I won't repeat, but as you probably know, the current SSbD framework was based on 5 steps, and this might change as Emma has introduced with the new SSbD framework. But for this webinar, we are going to focus on the current version, which is how we have been working at BIO-SUSHY up to now. So the first 3 steps are more related to safety, while the other 2 steps are related to sustainability. So how do we work to develop these new coatings on BIO-SUSHY? So developers provide us, ITENE, as SSbD partner, the list of the compounds that they will use in their formulation. And we evaluate these chemicals according to the framework. We start with step 1, and we develop the data gap and assess the chemicals with information gathered from the safety data sheets, bibliographic research, and also, in case that is needed, we use computational models and experimental data also. I would like to highlight that the classification for obtaining the score in the first step is based on CLP classification. This means that materials that are not required to comply with the CLP do not provide this information, and therefore sufficient data cannot be obtained to assess the associated risk in accordance with the SSbD framework, leading to an underestimation of the real risk. One of the challenge of that BIO-SUSHY faces is the absence of data. So following the current framework, in the absence of data, the proposed scoring system tends to indicate that those lack of data compounds are safe, leading to an underestimation of the real risk. When we sorry, one of the outcomes of BIO-SUSHY is the data generation, and due to that, the different methods are implemented, such as those. Oh, sorry, because this is what. So I will recap. One of the outcomes of BIO-SUSHY is the generation of data to assess these new materials or chemicals. And to do that, for example, we use in vitro methods, as for example, MTT, Comet assay, or ELISA. Also, University of Leeds has developed an innovative biomembrane sensor that helps to assess the possible hazards. And also, in some cases, we also implement computational tools as QSAR models or physical-based modeling and simulation of repellent properties and leaching mechanism of reference coatings for data generation. This work is performed by Consiglio Nazionale delle Ricerche, ProtoQSAR, and 7+9. And in relation to the step 2, we usually do this in parallel with step 1, except for the part involving estimating a worker exposure, in which we use a questionnaire to make an initial in silico assessment to determine the risk. Depending on the result, we then go to the company to measure the potentially dangerous processes. I won't say anything about step 3 because we haven't done it yet in BIO-SUSHY, but this will be in another webinar. And in relation to step 4, Materia Nova follows the following methodology to evaluate step 4. During the implementation of this methodology at BIO-SUSHY, Materia Nova has seen that the proposed scoring system is not suitable for all compounds, such as in the step 4, where the scoring is based on improvement of new materials compared to the chosen benchmark. For example, in the case of biopolymer use, that in our project there is one case study that used it. There is a lack of data to model its reliability, which generates too much uncertainty. So the scoring system therefore needs to be revised in this case. So we see that we need to make some changes in order to develop all the steps of the framework. And finally, regarding the step 5, also the step 5 at the current framework was optional. It has been taken into account from the beginning in BIO-SUSHY. And this work is performed by Good K+, and they follow the following steps, that identifying the relevant topics and issues, the mapping, prioritize, and then the risk analysis. With all these steps, the main challenge, as I have said before, is the absence of data. And we hope that with BIO-SUSHY, we contribute to generate this data to be used for other projects. So I think that I have been very fast. I think so. But to conclude, the BIO-SUSHY project represents a proactive step toward aligning innovative coatings technologies with the European Union's sustainability and safety goals. The main challenge is the lack of data, and one outcome of BIO-SUSHY will be providing it. Following the current framework, in the absence of data, the proposed scoring system tends to indicate that those lack of data compounds unsafe, leading to an underestimation of the real risk. And the use of computational tools is extremely helpful. However, their use for mixtures is still insufficient, and for polymers are not good due to that the polymers are outside of the applicability domain of the QSAR models. And also the nanoparticle present the same challenge. So with the new framework to be published soon, some of the limitations we have observed during its implementation will be resolved. And thank you.
Thank you, Pau. Thank you very much for this presentation. So we were, Emma provided a more general overview of the safe and sustainable design framework, spoke also about the revision, about the limitation and the lack of data, which also Pau underlined as a big thing. So with these two presentations, we are opening now the floor for questions. I have seen that there are already a couple of questions in the chat. Emma, if you can also, I don't see your camera. Yeah, here you are. So I think that we have a couple of questions already. The first one from three, they're coming more. Perfect. So the first one, I believe it's for Emma, but if you, Pau, want to also answer, that would be great. So from Guillermo, are there actions proposed in order to address the lack of standardized tools, like the digital tools, to support the implementation of the SSbD framework? Does it already exist digital tools to support the implementation of the framework?
Yes, Emma, I was saying that part.
I would say partially. There are several calls already published by the Commission on trying to standardize certain digital tools, and also looking into, for example, how AI can help us down the road as well. So it's in a broader perspective. There is, of course, also ongoing work on Park Toolbox. I will put a link in the chat after this, where it's a strong collaboration between many different partners on how to integrate different tools into the whole SSbD assessment. It's still under development. They have just released a new version of the tool. So please evaluate, test it out, and give us feedback. We would love to further develop this together with all of the stakeholders, of course. So the answer is partially. More is needed.
Thank you. Pau, do you want to add to? You wanted to say?
Because I was thinking in comment about the park, but Emma has already done it. So.
Okay. Perfect. Then we have another question. This explicitly says to Emma from Rob. What do you mean with general understanding of chemistry? What level is that? Bachelor, master? How do you see a uni program in this, as SSbD is quite a wide-ranging topic, so time would be limited?
Yeah, that is completely a fair question in that sense. What we have seen is that basic knowledge, I would say a bachelor level, the need is to have an introduction of SSbD at as early stage as possible. We have also seen this with other topics, for example, sustainable development, how to integrate that into educational programs so it becomes a natural part of. And also, this is what we see with SSbD, to gain, to understand the concept, to integrate that into your day-to-day courses. of course, there's no possibility for anyone to be an expert in all of these areas, or maybe some people will be in the future, but not today. But to have an understanding, even if you're studying organic chemistry, to have an understanding of what an LCA is, what it provides, and why it's needed. It's very important, I think, not only for the concept of SSbD, but for the future of product development overall. So we have identified that there is a possibility to both integrate this on a bachelor level, maybe further develop this on a master level, and of course, depending on which project a doctoral student is working, there is a possibility to also move higher.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, it's challenging, but as you said,
it is.
Yeah, there has to be a sustainable development. That was a very good example of how to integrate something from the outset. And Pau, we have two questions here. I'll start with one from Rob as well, which is quite specific, I'd say, from my non-technical perspective. So, if you rely on in silico and in vitro data, how will you account for systemic toxicity? No in vivo data required?
I will try to answer, but well, once we do the data gap, we also search for bibliographic data, and sometimes we find in vivo data. But it's true that within BIO-SUSHY, we don't perform. I forgot. Okay, we don't perform the in vivo test, but yeah, for some CLP categories, it is required. But for example, there are some QSAR models that, if I'm not wrong, they could provide an answer of that. So sorry, I think that I'm not the best to answer that question.
Maybe you can provide your contact for maybe give the contact to someone in the project that you can maybe put the info email contact Pau in the chat so people can follow up maybe with the project itself and contact another partner that might have another insight. But thank you, Rob, for that question. Another question for Pau, I see here from Anelia. Do you track, this is also quite specific, do you track the COGS of the product too? If this is something that is also, Pau, we're putting you on the line here.
I have checked what was the COGS, but unfortunately, I'm not the one in charge of the social LCA part, so I cannot answer. But if you put your email in the chat, I could send this question to my colleagues, and they give you. Okay. Well, okay. No,
Perfect.
but I have.
Thank you, Pau. That's great. And as we can see, we cannot be experts on everything. This is how obviously we work together in different interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. That's how we work, and that's the beauty of it. We have another comment question, I would call it, from Sepe in the chat. Let me see. I'm gonna read it quickly. The comments. So regarding economic assessments, there is currently no clear case of example of how these are practically implemented within the SSbD framework. In the revised version, an SLCC approach is suggested, but at low TRLs, it remains particularly challenging to quantify external costs, especially societal and environmental impacts. More concrete guidance or illustrative examples on how socioeconomic assessments can be integrated into SSbD would therefore be very valuable. And here comes the question. Thank you, Sepe. That was very well written. Are there any plans to further develop this aspect of the framework or provide additional support for practitioners? I think this is for Emma. Can you say something, Emma, about it? And of course, Pau, if you have anything to add.
Well, this is truly a question to JRC, not as much to me, but as far as I understand, there will be a new methodological guidance provided by JRC in the beginning of next year. I would like to say very sure, but mostly sure that this will be a part of it. I think that this is exactly what has been further developed and will be one of the focus areas on how to implement, since the signals that we have received that this will be part of the recommendation from the Commission as well. So in that sense, of course, there needs to be a guideline for practitioners on how to apply.
Thank
So
you.
I'm not promising anything because it's not on my table, but I think so, yes.
Thank you for that, Emma. Here, I'm not sure, Anneli, if I understand very well the question. Cost of goods sold. I don't know if this was coming from.
I think this was a
It was the
that's
previous
the
question.
GOX, no? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just second,
Okay.
sorry, I unmuted myself.
Oh,
It's
good.
the cost of goods sold, it's economics.
Yeah.
And Sepe
Okay.
answered. In fact, what he's telling is absolutely true. And my experience with research, because I'm doing also a lot of programs, is that everything looks very nice, positive, and until you start to selling it, and then nobody wants to buy it because of the cost. So it's an important topic to be looked to in the beginning, because if you are in a low cost market, this is an important parameter. If you sell to medical or pharma or defense maybe, then the price is not the cost of goods sold is not an important parameter. So this was my point. In fact, my question was about the cost of goods sold and Sepe answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then thank
So
you,
sorry
Sepe,
about
for
the
the answer.
interference. On the microphone.
Mhm.
Because I am very interested in this coatings for my product, the stone paper. So that it's an important element. The cost of it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Anelia. Thank you for the clarification. We still have some minutes for the Q&A. So if you can keep on writing your questions in the chat. If not, in the meantime, I have one for Pau, for example. So you're working at BIO-SUSHY right now, but based on your experience so far, what key advice would you give to other projects or companies attempting to develop the safe and sustainable coatings under the SSbD framework?
The advice did you said? Well, I think that first, it's very important the collaboration between developers and SSbD partners. The communication has to be very fluently in order to obtain all the information needed, and then that be patient, because sometimes the information arrives late. And you have to look a lot of different resources in order to obtain as much as that as possible. And as I said before, and I would repeat it again, this is the main challenge in all these projects, to follow the SSbD framework, and that if you don't have how to solve this, go to these conferences, for example, last week in SSbD conference, and it's a good opportunity to exchange and to see how to develop different things if you are struggling.
Thank you, Pau. I don't see any other question in the chat, but I have maybe one. Is there something? Someone unmuted himself or herself? No. I had maybe for Emma one last question, and then we can move on to our second part of presentations. This is perhaps also a bit controversial, but how can organizations measure whether they are successfully implementing the SSbD principles throughout the life cycle of their materials and products?
Oh, wow, that's a difficult one.
I'm very interested also on that, because we are all
Yeah.
I mean, when we work on EU projects, and we have KPIs, we have indicators, targets, we have we're trying to measure our impact, and how can we do that, if it's possible at all. Yeah.
I think that the most important thing is to set the goals and follow up the goals. And I don't mean we need to have a goal of 4 different assessments or something like that. More in how this is further transferred, how it is implemented. For example, we want to take the research results out there, right? We want to assure that somebody is implementing what we are producing. And in that sense, you have a possibility to measure impact. And again, I'm a little bit worried about the greenwashing factor also in this, because this is something that we have done with other definitions, other assessments, and so on. So I don't see at the moment, at least, that there would be any certification for that. But yeah, I think mostly measuring the impact, I would say, at the moment, at least. But also to, as Pau was saying, collaboration with others and see what others are doing. How can we collaborate? How can we push this forward? But it's a tricky one. Yeah.
It's a tricky one. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you. If you have perhaps at this stage no more questions, because you might then get more ideas afterwards, we'll have a second Q&A in which we will have time to speak, of course, with now Dimitris and Rosella. They are now going to present, give their presentations. But also, if you have other questions for Emma and Pau, I don't think they're going anywhere.